I found it so amazing in Last Night a DJ Saved My Life when you talk about Northern Soul, the influence of Northern Soul on essentially the origin of rave culture, and how I suppose it was these soul boys, going and dancing all night, and the tempo getting quite high. And I just found that absolutely stunning to think that the origins of something we consider so modern in terms of rave culture or festivals have their roots in the north of the UK, and with a bunch of, I guess, folks listening to, as you mentioned, like jazz funk and these types of records. And it kind of makes me think often of I don't know if you would agree with this. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but the sort of outsider nature of the DJ. Like you sort of mentioned that you were into what you would consider alternative music. And it does seem that, at least to a lot of the DJs I've talked to, initially when they come to DJing, it's always through some sort of not necessarily traditional path. Like they've been kind of either exposed to some fringe area or genre of music, or they felt like, for my case, I always felt like a musical outsider. I didn't resonate with any pop music at the time that was played growing up. And it wasn't until I guess, discovered electro and house music that I was like, oh, what's this? And then that led me into the path. What do you think about that outsider nature of the DJ as a motivating element?
Okay, firstly, I need to explain the difference between soul boys and people that are into Northern Soul, because they were kind of quite different. Soul boys were mainly in the South, not all, but a lot. Northern Soul was, as you mentioned, it was a phenomenon in the north of England in particular, but also Scotland as well. And the thing about people that were into Northern Soul is they were into like old records. They weren't into anything new until about 73, 74, when a few DJs started playing like modern records, like the Carstairs, It Really Hurts Me Girl, and things like that. So those two scenes were kind of separate, but they sort of came together a little bit in about 1975. And you're right about Northern Soul DJs and about Northern Soul, in fact, but it really was quite outsiderish music. I went to school with a kid who was in my class called Roger Banks, he's still really into Northern Soul. I had no idea about any of this, but he was organising coaches to go to Wigan Casino every Saturday when he was 14. I had no idea that this was going on under literally someone I knew in my class was doing this, and I had no idea it was happening. That's how much of an outsider culture it was. So they had specific clothes that they wore. They were really into taking amphetamines because they were staying up all night and dancing. And they were absolutely furiously collecting these incredibly rare 45s that have been made in Chicago and Los Angeles and Detroit and New York and New Jersey and so on. So it was very much a collector scene, Northern Soul, more than jazz funk was, because jazz funk, they collected records and they were passionate about it, but they were generally looking for new releases more than old releases, whereas Northern Soul was all about old releases. The harder it was to find something, the more coveted it was. So, they were like crazy about collecting. I would say that them and people that were into popcorn in Belgium were the first two kind of scenes where it was really about collecting. So they really introduced that idea of connoisseur.